Can you believe it? Dreamers Podcast is turning 1 year old on May 16th. To celebrate, I am hosting a live online event May 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For all the details, go to howtodream.co/year. I hope to raise lots of money for Give Kids the World charity and make a lot of fun memories. See you then.
This is the Dreamers Podcast, where dreamers share their stories to inspire you. Now, join host Joe Pardo as he interviews a dreamer who's living their dreams.
Hey Dreamers, I'm Joe Pardo, and today I am talking with Ed O'Keefe, who is making his dreams come true by being a serial entrepreneur and a father of 7. Glad to have you on the show, Ed.
Hey Joe. Hi everybody. I'm ecstatic to be here, excited, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, we have a lot to get into. I love the fact, well, not only are you a father of 7, I mean, that's, man. I mean, some people, it's tough being, twins or triplets or just 3 kids in general, but 7. So congratulations on that.
It's awfully busy around here. In fact, I was up, I think, at 4 a.m. and then 6:30 to get the rest of them off. We have 1-year-old twins, Eddie and Ireland. And they were up early, and it's cool. I'm working right now in my home office above the garage because one thing you were saying that I love about what you're doing is you're doing a lot of amazing things. And I think we're in a day and age where it's we got to give ourselves permission to while it's important to focus, I think it's also important to have, we're in this day and age of limitless possibility, and you do not have to quote unquote box yourself into one thing. And so like you, I really design my life and my businesses to support my life and to be synergistic with it versus the opposite way around. That's very important in everything we're doing here. So
I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously with my about page that you might have been looking at, it's with doing so many things, it's hard to sometimes convey that into one site. That's like, hey, if you're looking, because we're trying to basically brand ourselves at that point. And we're not trying to it's the Dreamers Podcast. Like when I started out, it was the Dreamers Podcast, but now I'm like, well, yeah, it is, but I'm doing all these other things as well. So let's look at it from a term of okay, it's all these things that Joe Pardo does, and Joe Pardo's the business. Joe Pardo's the brand. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that I'll share some specific examples with us. So we have the EdO'KeefeShow.com is one of our sites where I'll do interviews with other experts and world-class athletes, business owners, and stuff like that. That is really a kind of more of a passion project. Our core businesses are our health supplement business, which is on a different domain, has its own brand, and then we have a clothing line called Inspired Wear, which is on its own domain, has its own brand. Now, I'll use my Ed O'Keefe brand, we give free gifts away and stuff like that, but it depends who I'm speaking with. So I do believe that if you're in a market if I'm trying to sell something to people who have health challenges or have heart concerns, the message does have to get crystal clear. And so what's the unique selling proposition of that core business? And then it could branch off that. I do believe that. But if you're going to go in a crowded market space, one of the bits of advice I would give is what makes you different and why are you doing this? Sometimes it is a matter of it, but what's positive, Joe? Sometimes I think people wait to get that figured out sometimes before they start. And so sometimes it's found in the process. It emerges based on you moving and doing things. And all of a sudden you go, wow, 80% of our customers or our listeners or our book purchasers or whomever came off this topic. Well, guess what? That might be your really unique selling proposition if you're passionate about it. That might be something to drill deeper into. So I think there's a yin and yang there that you have to be aware of, and it's a process, you know.
You know, one of the things I've found, and I'm curious as to what yours is, the solution for business cards. Because you have so many businesses, it's like, what business, like, do you have like a tray of business cards that you keep in your pocket at all times? It's like, okay, which ones or better yet, the old accordion filing cabinets. You pull it out of your back pocket. It's like, okay, here, take this one.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. So again, like with me, if you go to edokeefeshow.com, I have free gifts I give away. Like, so you can get a free T-shirt, free omega-3s, free educational, inspiring business building strategies, right? Now, but I'll tell you one thing that's very important. I don't even have business cards. I think, maybe I should. One of the things that with Facebook nowadays, and with I'll give you like a little strategy. So like when I go to seminars, or if I'm going somewhere, on that airplane ride over, I will be very specific. I'll grab a notepad, and I'll say, okay, cool. I have 24 hours, 48 hours. Because I have people ask me a lot, like, how do you have so many kids and you're an entrepreneur? I set rules that allow me to function at a high level. And so one of those rules is, while still being an active, involved, present parent. One of those rules is I have what I call a 48-hour rule, Joe. So people will say, hey, do you travel a lot? And I guess I do more than most people, like probably you do as well, based on your website. But I also have a rule that I won't be away from my family for more than 48 hours. That is like, so if I'm going to go to San Diego for a seminar, instead of flying in the night before so that I'm there at the first session, maybe I'll fly in at 8 a.m. I might miss an hour of the flight, and then I'll try and do that. Am I 100% always perfect on that? No, there's some wiggle room on that. But what that does is it creates a framework. Now, step 2 of this is, what's the purpose of your business card? Well, if I'm selling my consulting or whatever, or if I want people to promote my supplements, or if I want to get inspired wear out there, or if I want people to hire me for a speaking engagement or consulting, then I'll map out what needs to happen in that 48 hours. And usually it's not a business card exchange. Usually it's something like we're doing right now. It's a face-to-face where we actually go deeper. I believe that 10 minutes with a person face-to-face, or, in this context is pretty cool because with technology, but there really is nothing better than when you get to sit down, have lunch, have coffee, or have a glass of wine, or I don't drink beer anymore, but and you actually get to feel a person's energy and like get to know them. So at that point, it's here's my cell phone, here's my email, here's my Facebook, and if it's a synergistic fit, then we should schedule time and make something with it. I'll tell you one thing, man. One thing that hopefully your listeners will get out of this is that 3 solid relationships that could be worth millions of dollars over longer periods of time, or let's say it's not even about the money, let's say it's about reach and exposure. I would much rather build 3 relationships in that 48 hours than build 20. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my philosophy. Do you mind if I share one more strategy as far as moving people towards you?
Floor's all yours.
The other thing with that is that, where I think people in business and in consulting and service building, and possibly even in like the podcasting world and in book building world, there's that whole misconception of you got to get your name and information out there. It's not a misconception, but it's a chasing mentality, where I'm in a belief system of, how do we create something so valuable, something so ridiculously powerful, that all these people that I want to meet are chasing me. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Yeah. So I'll spend time, and I think people should spend more time just sitting and thinking about who those people are and how do you make those connections. This is true for every single venture. It's not about a money thing. It could be about a profit, not a charity. It could be whatever. Instead of going people asking for stuff, how do we create value for them before, so they're pre-qualified or pre-inoculated, predisposed to happily support us. That's what I would spend more time looking at.
So a couple things to touch on. I mean, we haven't even gotten to your background yet.
Yeah,
But
hey, I kind of like this, man, because what's present is what's powerful. My background already happened. So,
the 48-hour rule thing, I love that concept, and I'm a huge purporter of you can bend the rules, you can break the rules, but there has to be rules to begin with, right? If you just do whatever, that just becomes anarchy, and then it just turns into whatever that is. With setting the 48 hours, it's like, okay, well, if it ends up being more or ends up being less, that's okay. It just, it's important to at least know, like, hey, that's the base.
yeah.
Everything's not acceptable. This is what's acceptable, and we can bend it, we can break, we can, make adjustments.
Yeah, so like I have a book coming out called The Art of Time Collapsing: How to Get What You Want Much Faster Than You Ever Thought. There's a lot of strips. I'm debating on just launching out in 3 parts because it's the amount of chapters is like around 18 chapters at this point, which I think is too much. But like my friend, like Tim Ferriss, his book, I think 4 Hour Body, he wrote like 800 pages and had to cut it down to I think 400 something. So if you study any high performers, so the reason why I want to bring that up first is the concept of time collapsing is really about understanding that there's certain assumptions that are projected onto us from society. So we are taught very, very young that if I go to preschool, then I should logically go to kindergarten, and then I logically will go to first grade, and then I will follow this sequence all the way through to college. And then when I'm done with college, there's like this inoculated thought process that I'm going to be ready for the real world. And as any of us who've ever gone through college realize, that's a bunch of crap. You're not ready for the real world. The real world's now your next university's beginning. So one of our rules is that sequences are better than leapfrogging. When the fact is that all high performers live in a different reality of that rule. They flip the rule on itself. And so the rule might be is that instead of working your way through the top, just leapfrog to the top. And so I'm not really worried about or concerned with or even interested in what the people that are in the top 90% are doing. I'm just really curious about what the top 1 to 5% are doing. And so even if I don't have a one iota of experience in that thing, I will then mentally project myself into understanding I'm just going to go study these people. Now, the reason I share that is because when you go study those people, you will quickly find that they operate out of a rule set. They're very structured. And not so much like, 7 a.m. to 7:15, like not necessarily that, because they're all different, but they end up having these filters of reality and rules that allow them to function and perform at a super high level. So the 48-hour rule came from me just kind of through experience of noticing that as my wife and I started having more kids, when I was gone 3 days, my outcomes with my relationships with my kids, the structure and how it flowed just wasn't what I wanted. So I don't want to project that onto other people, but it came out of just that ebb and flow of feeling it out and being like, all right, you know what? I'm going to create a 48-hour rule. Now, as the kids are getting a little bit older, I think there's times where I should expand that because it allows me to have 2 dinners at a location rather than 1. And in those time frames, I might be able to get quantum relationship value done. So long answer, but you're right. There's rules, and then what's the opposite of conventional rules? Because I would bet that almost every high performer is doing the opposite of what is necessarily imposed upon us.
Well, yeah, definitely. That's how they get to be where they're at. That's how they become the trendsetters and the people that everyone else chases after.
Yeah.
Not because they saw what everyone else was doing and said, "Oh, I can do that too." In some cases they can, but a lot of times those minor changes of taking what's already being done and then maybe adjusting a few things to what works for them. is only a little bit farther out in the future than like these people that are high performers that are like, no, you're looking at it like totally wrong. And then they're way far out into the future, and people are like, don't understand it until they're like, oh wow, how did this guy make all this money? Well, he showed up and he did it in a way that nobody else was doing it that way.
Yeah, like I mean, like with your book, like you decided not to write a book like everybody else.
Yes.
I think that's cool. I totally agree with that. I think it's awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I hate reading, so it made sense for me to write a book that was for people who hate reading. And
there's an ever-growing amount of people that would rather either like listen to your podcast or just check out meaningful, powerful concepts fast rather than that. So I love it, man. Good job.
Well, thank you. Let's go. I mean, I know you kind of already downplayed your background, but if you want to go in a little bit and just give like a glossing over.
Yeah, well, I mean, so some of these, like, the counter examples are kind of leapfrogging mentality. So in my book, I talk a lot about leapfrogging. And the concept of leapfrogging comes from a book that Robert Ringer wrote in like the 70s called Winning Through Intimidation. And inside of it, he talks about that we have no obligation or sort of, I should have this written down. I should have it memorized. I haven't talked about it a lot lately, so because we're working on a different project, but you have no obligation to work your way through the ranks that anyone at any given moment can decide and has the right to leapfrog to the top of whatever endeavor or thing that they're going to do. And what's cool about that is when I read that when I was in my early 20s, I had come home from nursing school. I went into nursing school, played volleyball in college, and told my parents I wanted to go become an entrepreneur. And that didn't make any sense to anybody. And so I'm the 12th of 13 kids. So being the first to graduate from college and then to say I'm not going to school, while they supported me as a person, I think they all thought I was crazy. So the concept was I started teaching mental toughness to volleyball athletes, and I was doing a lot of motivational speaking, a lot of public speaking, but I was broke. And so I started creating products around this mental toughness stuff because I thought becoming an author would make me wealthy. That proved not to be the case, but it moved me closer to like understanding direct response marketing. So then I dove in to direct response marketing. And I would tell any of your listeners that are looking for like, how do I make more money? I'm a huge believer that you need to learn how to make your potential customers and your customers move towards you, not you move towards them. Chasing money is never going to make anybody rich, and it usually leaves a sour taste in their prospect's mouth. And so around that time, I saw some guys who were, so I was only like 25 here, man. And I was teaching mental toughness strategies online, and I was using direct marketing principles. And then I saw mentors of mine who were actually selling how to make money in like, say, accounting, or like teaching accountants how to grow their accounting business, or teaching financial planners how to grow their financial planning business. Kind of what we would call niche marketing. I looked at my income and I looked at everything I was doing. I was like, I will never get to my dream income doing what I'm currently doing. And it was one of those magical moments where I was sitting at my computer and I got punched in the face because what other people were selling, they were selling things for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, and I'm sitting here selling a $40 ebook to a market of volleyball coaches where there might be 2,500 of them in the entire country who would potentially buy the darn thing. So just do the math, right? So I made the leap into helping dentists grow their dental practices. Now, how in the world did I get there, Joe?
I'm curious.
Yeah, right. So how do you do that? Well, what I did was I went to these mentors of mine, and these were all virtual mentors. They weren't people that was in their membership club. And I said, hey, can I work for you guys one day a week for free? No, we don't do that. All right, not a problem. But we do licensing of our product. Okay, cool. I scrummed up the money. It was coincidental, longer story, but I came across a few $1,000. I bought the license, right? I was going to pay the rest of the licensing fee with the revenue I made. I got access to their materials, which were decent, but they were good enough to get me live. I dove into this market, and we ran an ad for like $1,800. We were selling a course for like $1,000, made 7 sales. The next month I doubled that up, and I just kept doubling it. And our best year was over $7.5 million.
Holy
cow.
cow.
Yeah. So that was all, and I did that for about 9 years. And here's the funny thing, man. I had no experience in dentistry, had no experience in, except besides going to the dentist when I had cavities as children. And so the mental framework that had to flip in order to give myself permission, which is something I love sharing with people, because the process of wow, okay, should we do what all these other consultants are doing? No. Do what these guys have already done in other markets and just pretend like you're already there, and use other people's credibility and wisdom to just leapfrog there. And if we unpacked that strategy can work for almost everybody and anything. When I consult, and I shouldn't say consult, when I mentor athletes, like high-level athletes, that's the same process. Who's already doing it at a super high level? Who's their coaches? How do we put you in an environment where that's the standard? And then how do we make all that stuff happen? And then you go for it. So that's the leapfrog time collapsing concept. Then I did it again in the health supplement market, which I'm happy to share in a minute. But I want to let's see if you had any questions on the dental stuff.
So yeah, I think that that's what marketers try to do, right? It's all perception is reality, and if you can show that, showcase what you're doing in a way that looks like you're doing it in a high level, and the value that you're providing is good enough, at least good enough.
Yeah.
You can really make anything happen. I would agree with that. Coming from my background in business, so. Yeah, I think that's awesome that you applied it to. I guess nobody else was really doing it in dentistry at the time.
Well, actually, let me back up. There were people doing high-end consulting, and there were a ton. Okay, so how I decided to go into the dental market, man, was they said to me, they were testing me. They said, "Hey, we'll go through the yellow pages," because that's how we did market research back then. Go through the yellow pages and mark out how many pages per niche, like of ads there were. And dentistry was probably the 3rd highest. I think real estate and some other ones were higher, but there were already a lot of people doing exactly what we were doing.
I would think lawyer would be up there.
Yeah, a lot of ads. Yeah. So and then we went to the trade magazines. We saw a lot of people advertising consulting services to dentists. And so the correlation there, man, if a lot of people are advertising already, you can go there and there's people that need that service. So it was competitive. I'm actually a believer in going in competitive markets with a slightly different angle, but you have to deliver. Now, I want to share one thing. I'm reading a lot of stuff from billionaires lately, and one thing, there's this book, it'll come to me in a second, and he talks about if you're not embarrassed by your first product, then you're not moving fast enough. So if you're not just getting out there and moving, and you're trying to wait till it's perfect, then you're not doing what's called the minimum viable test. And so I would never put out what I put out in my first product, but we made it better very, very quickly. Yeah, money's attracted to speed, and sometimes you gotta get out there and embarrass yourself to figure these things out,
Yeah, it definitely doesn't come easy. And the minimal viable product that you're talking about, it makes sense for everybody, and not even just if you're trying to sell a product, but even just trying to do a hobby. What's the first couple steps you can take? Not necessarily oh wow, so you did this, and you ended up with an iPhone. Well, yeah. Wait a second. What was the first step to the the iPhone 6? Well, if you go way back into the 80s, the first steps were being taken, even before the 80s, the first steps were being taken towards an iPhone. So, you got to put out, what you can put out first, not what the big time dream is necessarily.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
So, Ed, what's been the biggest roadblock you've had to overcome?
Like right now, I would say it's understanding that a different rule set has to be created on the concept of time in a structure of a growing family. So that's my current biggest challenge, and it's requiring new skill sets. So the skill sets that worked for me back when I was 29, now I'm at the age of 39 with 7 children, don't work anymore. Like they do, but they got to evolve. So for me, the biggest roadblocks have usually, but in like, are you talking about in business, life, or?
I mean, usually we go with business, but you could go with life. I mean, in your case, I mean, 7 kids and multiple businesses. It's unless you want to pick out one for each.
I think the biggest challenge in business is that when you get something working, you're taught to delegate it and leverage it, right? And so we've done that pretty well. I think the biggest challenge for me as a high-level problem solver, as an entrepreneur, is being this problem solver for your key project managers and people that you're trying to empower. So instead of creating a framework of thought, thinking, and where they come to conclusions that are quote unquote good enough, it's stuff that would take me 3 seconds to solve. A very big challenge is just sitting there and let them process it out. That's a challenge. The people side of it, we grew our supplement business. We did $28 million in a year and 2 years ago. The funny thing is we're doing about half that right now, and we're more profitable at half that. So I think the growth thing is definitely my unique skill sets in the how to figure out how to make money with things. Operations and scale is something we're working on, working with other people. So I'll give you an example. So right now I'm consulting a lot of companies that are doing multi-8 figures on their way to 9 figures from a marketing and brain work and how to like create hooks. Where are they missing to pick up more profit? But if you ask me to go inside and run that business from a scale operations perspective, I would fail at that and I would hate it. And so I think what's the biggest blockage and is also the biggest opportunity for all entrepreneurs, man, is understanding that the low value, low dollar stuff that is not your strength, you need to get rid of as quickly as possible. So that's, I think, an ongoing challenge. And one other thing is I'm not a micromanager. So when I think the other challenge for me personally, just to share with everybody in full transparency, is when I give someone like, hey, here's a project, here's whatever, I'm not going to check up on you every day. And so a challenge I have is that when people aren't doing their end of it, or they don't have that drive, or then you require a lot more structure, then they're probably not a great fit to work underneath me. So those are some of the challenges for growth and scale and leverage.
I got to ask you though, do you find it hard to convince some of these high level people?
Most of these guys, I'll skip to it because I think most of these guys who are already at that level, who are pros and who are bad at, who are really world class, who like my style. Because see, my philosophy is I give away my secrets. So what they're looking for is, at that level, guys aren't looking for the whole roadmap. They're looking for distinctions. They're looking for mini distinctions. So for them, they would happily pay 20 grand for a day of consulting or 10 grand for a month to get access, or attend, like we have an intensive coming up for 2.5 days and the fee is $7,500. And you'd be like, who pays this money? Well, people that get that, they're looking for slight edge and distinctions. If you've ever been around really high-level athletes, what they're looking for is not necessarily a new thing that would transform them. They're looking for less things, but more clarity on where they should focus. So think about that. So usually guys that are at 7, 8, 9 figures, they have some of the things dialed in. They're not looking for more. They're looking for distinctions. And so to get them to respond, no, they're the easiest guys to get to respond. The people that are hard to get to respond are ones that aren't buying books on marketing, aren't listening to these types of podcasts, aren't spending $1,000, $3,000, $10,000 to attend an event where they're fully committing And I think that those people are the harder people to convince. And so I don't spend any time with them. So the way I work is we put them through a funnel. If they like the material we're putting out, then they're going to self-select to be in that room, exchange that money. And I believe that's the truth of like with our inspired wear, man. Like your listeners will love that stuff because you're inspiring. You're doing inspiring dream work stuff. I don't even worry about the people who aren't interested because they'll never buy. You're just going to lose oxygen by trying to communicate to them.
I just asked because, you know, like growing up, my family had a business and, does still have a business, but you know, my grandfather was like, oh, he was one of those old school guys that would never have a consultant or a consulting company come in to tell him how to run his business when he started from the ground up. You know?
Yeah, and that's okay. So that's totally okay. But he would probably sit and have coffee with a friend who's in a similar business and discuss challenges.
Yes.
So for me, I'm not a consultant. I believe I'm an entrepreneur. Like, do you remember how when we were talking about the intro, consultant is like a 4-letter word in some ways because most people become consultants because they read enough books about a topic and they feel they can give other people advice. I've screwed up, and I'll tell you one thing. If you go and look at any of my videos, I share everything I did wrong because I think that's when you ask the challenges, man, I think that's where the hardest part about being your own entrepreneur is that you're screwing up more than you're winning. And no one is there to tell you like, look, dude, that's normal. That's baseball, right?
You know, I always say baseball, man. That's, you know, it's like, man, if you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're a legend.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. And here's one thing I want to share with everybody. All you need is one thing that can give you a little bit of a home run or a couple doubles. And all of a sudden you got momentum. And once you got momentum, then you could drive and drill down on it. It builds that confidence. Most people don't need consultants, man. What you need is friends you sit with. And sometimes you got to pay for it. You got to pay for access into the room. Like a mastermind group where they charge. Some guys will say, well, I don't really attend those things. Well, that's okay. But let me ask you a question. Who are you sitting with regularly that you are accountable to and you're getting all these fresh ideas? Well, and then they hesitate. Well, yeah, then maybe you need to go pay because what happens is in a room where people are actually investing in a room, there's emotional commitment, there's financial commitment, there's time commitment. And when you start adding those elements, you now have a much more higher performing room. Imagine if a guy who said he wanted to be a world champion in the UFC or wanted to be, you're a runner, Joe?
I am a runner.
Yeah. So they say, hey, I want to run like for me, when I ran my first marathon when I was right out of college, and I did it because I didn't believe I was a runner. So I did a little bit of the group. I ran like a 9:45 mile, right? So I'm a slow runner.
That's still over if you can hold that over a marathon or even a half marathon, that's still pretty good. I mean, for not being a hardcore training person.
Yeah, that's good. I was happy. I finished. I was happy. So, but my point where I was going to go there is now you got a guy who normally runs an 8-minute mile, and he's saying he wants to run the next marathon at 6 minutes and 45 seconds. Big difference. So then the questions would be is well, who are you training with? Who's your coach? How are you getting better? What's your plan? And if he doesn't have if he or she does not have actually those answers to it, then they're in the hope land, not in the actual execution place. So that's where I really believe that you're strong as they talk about the 5 people, right? The 5 people, everyone knows that, right? But I'm starting to think now that it's not necessarily the 5 people, it's probably the 12 people that because with Facebook nowadays, we're so addicted to getting more intake. I'm also thinking how does that affect your 5 people? Having all these people on your news feed that say the craziest, stupidest stuff, waste of time stuff. So I'm a big believer in having deep relationships with high-level people and continually expanding that circle because I believe that's the fruit of life of really expanding those relationships, you know?
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the reasons I do the show, is to be able to connect with awesome people like yourself and others that I've had on the show, from all, all walks of life, all backgrounds, all careers and hobbies and everything. So it's just something that I love doing, because it opens me up to, when someone comes to me and says, hey, do you know a person that does X? I'm looking for something. Yes, I do know. You know what it is? It's like, I don't know, what your background is, but like, and this was even before my time, but like my grandparents, right? So everybody had a guy like that. There was, Joe the plumber and Bill the electrician and all that. And it's still, actually, even though we're not in South Philly anymore, we're, in South Jersey, it still is kind of that way, for the most part. But it's just, it's the same exact way, but you're expanding it. I'm expanding it on a global level. And I love it. I absolutely wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, you've interviewed some really awesome dudes, man. I gotta check out that Random Act of Kindness person.
Oh, she's an adorable 8-year-old. It's awesome. It was so cool. So this is the Dreamers podcast, Ed, and I want to know, what was your childhood dream growing up?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so for me, I mean, I probably wanted to be a professional athlete like all kids, and then I grew up, it's really funny, man. It's actually funny you asked this, because I grew up in a blue-collar South Side family, which we still live on the South Side of Chicago, great place to live. My dad was an electrician. I think 5 of my brothers are electricians. My brother's an engineer. Like, it's a very blue-collar oriented family. So the reason I share that with you is because when I was a kid, I thought I was going to become an electrician. I did. And then, to fortunately discover volleyball after I went to baseball tryouts in my freshman year, and there was a 6'4" catcher ahead of me. I was I was probably 5'9" at the time. And I discovered volleyball and then went to school. I was really blessed and fortunate to play. The thing that changed my life was listening to stuff like Chicken Soup for the Soul, other people like what you're doing, where they're starting to teach, hey man, you live in a time and place where you can go do whatever you want. That got me going. So now I started dreaming about being a business builder, a money maker, stuff like that. So now, man, I want to just build businesses, because I believe that the private sector of people who build businesses have the most potential of transforming the world, not the opposite. With Inspired Wear, with Marine Essentials, our omega-3 business, and with the Ed O'Keefe Show, and some other things we'll probably do. Like, for example, like in our health intensive, I really want to match up marketers with world transforming health experts. Not me do all the work. I mean, that if I was wanting to be a $300 million, $500 million business, but I think there's potential there. So what I'm trying to get at is I have a few different dreams. One is to raise confident kids who believe in themselves and believe they can transform the world. Create a great family structure and environment that nurtures that. Number probably 3 is build businesses that transform people's consciousness and minds. And so with Inspired Wear, our clothing, like this one says, you can't cheat the grind. And then on the back it says, don't expect people to understand your grind when God didn't give them your vision. Right?
It says all that on the back? That's a lot.
Yeah,
and turn around. I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's got it all.
Oh wow, that is a lot.
but here's the deal, man. Is I wanted to create a clothing line that reinforced the psychology that I wanted to feel every day. So it was really one of those things like this weird T-shirt I wore today at CrossFit was unrealistic, and on the back of it says, today I will be unrealistic. I will believe something's possible for me and my family that has never been possible before. So I think as far as dreams go, man, I just want to expand people's awareness of what's possible for themselves and do it in a cool, fun way, and just keep creating. I think creating greatness and awesomeness is the secret, for everybody. I really do. I think it's the secret of living long. I think it's the secret of being healthy. So that's kind of my dream right now, man. I don't know, it wasn't as clear as it probably should be, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty much where I'm at.
it doesn't always have to be clear. Things change, and you again have to adapt those lessons that you learned once to the new changes and the new challenges that await. So I think that for you, it's I still can't get past the whole 7 kids thing and making all this happen. I don't have a kid or kids yet, and it's probably in the very near future for me. But it's just it's
just go make it happen, Joe. Just go make it happen.
Just trying to buy more hours. I wish I could go buy more hours and energy to go with that. Time and effort. I need more time and I need more effort. Always. So with all that said, do you have any other dreams for the future?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things I want to do, that would probably take longer to speak. But like with Inspired Wear, for example, I'll just share this. So there's a couple, how are you actually going to transform the world? So do you know how we're working on this? So this isn't live yet. Do you know how when people run charities for say people that are ill with say with cancer or with diseases, they run the charity event. They have T-shirts and they say, okay, go buy this, and then all the proceeds go to that charity. And then once that benefit's done, well, then what happens? So if you could look on a sales cycle, the sales go up and then they flatline. You with me on that?
Yep, definitely.
Okay. So one of the things I thought about was well, why don't we just host countrywide? We just sell the shirts at cost. We pay for the design. They work with our designers or their own designers, and they host their shirts on our site. So 95, 97%, whatever the revenue minus the cost is, goes directly to the charity. They don't have to go out and build their own shopping cart. They don't have to go figure that stuff out. They just go to inspiredwear.com and they go, let's say / Ed O'Keefe or whatever their charity might be, like Ben's Charity and or Ben's Mission, whatever their thing might be. And you can do this with other charities as well. But here's my point. Send people to Inspired Wear. They buy their shirts there, or we ship it to them at cost. We don't really care. We want to support it. But what's really cool is that after the benefit, the customers who buy from us are probably going to buy other shirts or other clothing lines. And then what we would do is mark 25% or 30% of the commission ongoing goes back to that charity. So say you go and purchase a shirt that you see in our store. And the coolest thing is now people nationwide have access to buying and supporting the charity, not just people locally. And what we would do is let's say Joe comes in and buys Susie's charity shirt. Well, if Joe spends $1,000 with us in the next 2 years, $250 just went back to that charity.
Very cool.
I think it's a disruptive. So some of that kind of, some of those things seem so obvious to me as to why we aren't doing it. I don't understand that. I think we can really transform lives that way. And there's more than that as well. When the breast cancer walks come up and stuff like that, there's a firefighting department group called 555, which raises money for equipment for firehouses. And I was like, well, why is that? I mean, I've been only to a couple of firehouses my whole life, and they had exercise equipment. And these guys told me that 95% of firehouses don't even have exercise equipment at all. So all these firefighters are supposed to be saving your life. Most of them are obese or whatever. They don't have the things. And so what 555 does is they create T-shirts. They go do these charities, and for every 100 shirts they sell, they donate a exercise bike or exercise row machine. So I said, well, why don't you guys just host your stuff on my site? When our marketing machine kicks in, we'll be selling hundreds a month, and then we work the same engagement with them as well. So I think there's a lot of we're just working on logistics right now, and I want to make sure everything's dialed in. I think there's a lot of opportunities like that can have really long-term transformational power.
I love the idea. I think that's awesome. And when is that part of it launching, or has that already been launched?
It's not launched yet. It's we're going to start. If people go to inspiredwear.com, they will see a opportunity. Either when they listen to this, they will see a inspired wear coming soon. We have all the designs laid out, and then we have a viral campaign right now where if you for every 5 friends you send, you get a free T-shirt, and then there's like little reward bucks and stuff like that. So we're testing the viral stuff. The other dream I have from a business perspective is once we dial in the do you mind that I don't mean like to be pitching my stuff. I'm just sharing.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So how I'm launching this business is different than I've ever launched any other business. Now, the reason being is that I believe virality is offering us opportunity. Meaning, if you create awesomeness, the sharing of it is better than ever before. And so we're doing a viral contest before we even allow people to buy. So we're not even live from a purchasing perspective. We're thinking of doing a crowdfunding campaign in a few months after we get launched and get our sales coming in, as a way of building a bigger community and getting funds coming in to help build out some of these dreams and these crazy ideas way faster. And anyone that has, we're going to have contests on shirts, videos, all that stuff. I'm building out a content team that's just going to be creating inspiring stories. And we'll promote your podcast, because the stuff you're doing is just really inspiring. So we just want to provide inspiring content, and we just know the shirts will sell because, well, they will. People love shirts and clothing. So just trying to be awesome, man. That's what it's about.
No, I think that's a great way to give back up front, and then utilize the back end, to be able to make a profit and still give back on the back end.
Yes, that's the secret. Yeah, that's what we're striving to. So I just got to get from idea to execution, and we're working on that.
And I appreciate you wanting to support the show. I really appreciate that.
Like this girl here, that Random Acts of Kindness. Like, one of our T-shirts is we have a whole teacher line, because why wouldn't you want to see an inspiring message on your teacher's T-shirt, right? And so the reason I share that is because when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, we need the kindness revolution has to kick in, brother. And so one of our teacher T-shirts, which moms can wear, which coaches should wear, adults can wear, kids can wear, it says, number 1 rule, kindness. And kindness is big right here. And then on the back it says, kindness is the only, is a thing, I think it's a Thomas Edison quote, where the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Yeah, we got to promote your store with Alex McKelvey's 6,000 Random Acts of Kindness. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she after that, she plans on going to 60,000. So
Love it. I got to introduce my kids to her. This is, virtually, and then hopefully someday they get to meet her face to face,
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Ed, before we plug all the rest of your websites and everything,
I think I plugged them all, bro. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No reason to be sorry. You had a lesson in each of them, so it matters. That's the important part. Is there any other last thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, you bring up the time thing, and with the 7 kids and whatever. So whether you're single and you don't have any kids, and you have 1, 2, or 3, I always see parents of 1 or 2, and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, you got 7. How do you do it? I'm so exhausted," or whatever. And like I said to a mom yesterday, I ran to Starbucks. I said, "What you're going through right now is totally real. So there's no things evolve, but it's real." So I want people to realize So I'll get to a principle here in a second. It's very, very real. So never feel less because you're not there. I think it's important with business too. Is like, oh, we never grew a company over 10 million. Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed to be. No, bro. If you are in the arena and you are moving, you can have a seat at the table. But I'll tell you one thing: high-level guys, man, and women, high-level men and women will. As a friend of mine asked me to meet with a guy who thought he had this life-changing idea. And I went through my checklist of have they tested it yet? Has he done anything yet? Has he sold anything yet? And the answer was no. And I was like, oh, last thing I want to do is meet with a guy who hasn't ever done anything with it. And so when I met with him, I went through it, and at the end of the day was, man, you have to try this, or else you're going to sit here and tell me it's the best idea ever. And it was kind of like what I said to him for about 45 minutes. And I thought of him today. So that was like 3 months ago. I would bet $1,000, bro, that he has not done the most basic level advice I gave him. Number one is you got to get moving. Number two is with the reason I brought up the kids is that the rules that I might have to go by a little bit more now than I did 10 years ago because of sense of urgency and less space and time is what is the tip of the spear activity or result that if you got that done or if you accomplished that would make everything else easier? What is the tip of the spear or what's the one thing that if you can do that, it would make everything else like the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth thing on your list, look, they wouldn't matter. When we grew from a few 100,000 a month to 28 million, the key is we got our sales funnel dialed in, one sales funnel dialed in to a metric that was able to scale. I was shocked that you could take one product and do almost 25 million or 24 million with one product, and the 10%, 20% were our other products. One product did that. So what's the tip of this spear? And then as for, Joe, for any of your guests that want just to watch our free, I believe in giving almost everything away free. Go to my website, edokeefeshow.com. You'll see they can opt in to get like a free t-shirt, free supplements, free training. And if they don't want to opt in, they could just click on the videos and check it out too of like all the training and interviews. We'll have to have you on as well one of these days, buddy.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. Real quick, I wanted to touch on, it's the quality of the ideas, right? Good ideas are good, regardless of, I didn't do 10 million. Well, what was the niche? What was the market? Like you said in the beginning, just for the, people listening, it's like, if I'm trying to sell a book to volleyball coaches, well, there might be 2,500 of them in the whole country. How many of them are in the world? Maybe a bit more, but still very limited. But if you had tapped into like 80% of that, well, then you did something right? Because those good ideas were quality good ideas.
You developed a muscle. You developed a process muscle, and then you can take that and go anywhere. Yeah, I mean, when we have more time, or like when I talk about accelerated learning and leapfrogging on the actual process, start where you're at, get the process done, and then you could always take it to something that's more profitable. Most people should not start in the supplement business or like how to make money online business, because that's where all the pros are hanging out. They should go do something where they're passionate about it. And dude, with Pinterest, with Facebook, with Instagram, with all these social sites, none of the pros are there yet. Go figure those things out, man. Go figure them out. And everything we are in a, I honestly believe, and you asked me to dream, I believe that we are going to see more deca millionaires in the next 10 years, probably the next few years, than we've seen in the last 30 years. Because of the proliferation of ways to create value for customers.
Well, it's like a whole new marketplace. It's not going to the local marketplace. It's the world marketplace, and it's not just a global economy, but it's like there's the global economy, and then there's the internet above it. Like it's a whole nother world. But is there any other sites you wanted to plug real quick?
No, that's it, man. You can go to edokeefeshow.com or go to. You can go to Inspired Wear simply because we are giving away free t-shirts by going straight there. And we'd love for you to share that. That's really a mission business. Some of my good buddies are like, why are you starting that business? Well, because it's one of those things where I want to wear my own clothing every day. It was designed for me first. It was like one of those passion projects. And what I want is people to come feel this material is awesome. We have great yoga pants coming out. We have great clothing coming out. We have kids line where it's like, I got this, can't stop, won't stop. Just positive stuff, man. And one of the shirts we got is "You Got This," which is a phrase we use a lot when training, so it reinforces for other people. And no, that's it, man. If people wouldn't mind sharing that, I would be ecstatic. And that's why I believe you're just giving away content and give away clothing, because if Gary Vaynerchuk said, if we're in a world of transparency, and if you can be transparent, you can conquer the world, because people want that. And you're doing that, Joe. So congrats to you. And
thank you.
And for all your people out there, no, just get going, man. Be awesome where you're at. Don't worry about where you're not at, and believe in yourself.
Well, with that, I will have all those links in the show notes at howtodream.co, and I would love to have you on again in like a year to catch up and see how you've been.
All right, brother. Always. Anything.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, Ed.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.
Hey Dreamers, Joe here. I really appreciate you listening to Dreamers Podcast. If you'd like to find out how to support the show, please visit howtodream.co/support for all the ways you can help out. Thanks for the support, and please keep on dreaming.